Hey guys, and welcome back to my channel. So today I'm going to be doing a different kind of video. I've never done one of these on my channel. I really wanted to do this video because I love watching mysterious videos, crime-based videos, movies, documentaries. I've been watching Kendall Ray, Bella Fiore, and I've actually been watching someone new. I think her name is Danelle or Danielle. This is her. I love watching her. She does great videos. She covers cases really well. Yeah, I got inspired to make one of my own videos, so hopefully I do a good job. This is my first time, and hopefully you guys enjoy it. If you do, give it a thumbs up so I can do more. Without further ado, let's get into this case. This is a very long case. It's a little crazy. Yeah, it's a lot of information. If I miss anything, you guys can go ahead and leave them down there, or I'll leave it in the description box. So make sure you check there if there's any information that's missing. So today I'm going to be talking about the disappearance of Kathleen McCormick Durst. Kathleen, also known as Kathy, a lot of her family members and friends called her that. She was born on June 15th, 1952, and she was actually the youngest of 5 children. She graduated from New Hyde Park High School in Long Island. She wanted to pursue her career in becoming a pediatrician because a lot of people said that she actually loved working with children. Her family members and friends described Kathy as being a very down-to-earth, loving person. She dressed really nicely. Like, when people saw her, they would be like, oh my god, like, she dresses so cute. Anybody that she encountered, she was just really nice to them. Kathy was a nursing student at Western Connecticut State College in Danbury. She was always ready to learn, and she was always excited to go to school. And in 1971, she actually met Robert Allen Durst. Robert Allen Durst was born on April 12th, 1943. He grew up in Scarsdale, New York. He's a real estate mogul. He is the son of New York City's mogul Seymour Durst. He has a younger brother, Douglas. Robert does come from a very wealthy family. His dad and his brother are actually known to be one of the wealthiest people in New York. They own the Durst organization. Well, they're very well known in New York, and I want to put that in there because it is going to be important information as we go on into the story. Robert attended Scarsdale High School, and a lot of his classmates actually described him as being very quiet. He was kind of a loner. Robert and Douglas actually had to go to counseling because there was really bad like sibling rivalry, and it was so bad that they had to go to see a counselor. His psychiatrist actually told the family that Robert was showing signs of personality decomposition and schizophrenia because he was very hostile, and when the psychiatrist was analyzing him, if that's how you would say it, he noticed that there was a lot of things off with him. And I believe he was about 10 years old when the psychiatrist said that, and she actually wrote a letter to his father stating all of that information. Robert was actually 7 years old. He actually witnessed his mother committing suicide. So his father, Seymour, actually brought him up to the window in their Scarsdale, New York home. And his mother was actually on top of the roof, and Seymour brought Douglas up to the window and made him watch his mother jump to her death, which I think is so crazy. Seymour actually says that the reason why he put Robert up to the window was so that his mom could see, and possibly she wouldn't jump if she saw that he was standing there, but either way she still jumped. And seeing this as a child, I could see that growing up it'll cause a lot of, for some people, personality disorders, and you know, it's trauma. It really screws you up. So I have no idea why he would even do that. He didn't even try to stop the mom, which I find really crazy. He'd rather put his son up to the window so he could watch his mother committing suicide, which is just sad. I can't even imagine what he was going through or what he was thinking. It's scary for anybody to really see that. 1971, Kathy was actually living in an apartment building that the Durst family owned, and it was located on the east side of Manhattan on 52nd Street, and that's actually where Robert and Kathy met. Robert had a very close friend. His name was Stuart Almond. He actually lived on the 2nd floor, and Kathy lived on the 3rd floor of the apartment building. And Robert would come to collect the rent, so that's how they met. Stuart would actually mention to Robert, there's a really beautiful girl living upstairs. Robert went up to collect the rent, and apparently when they saw each other, it was like an instant hit off. They both hit it off immediately. So the beginning of the relationship, a lot of people described Kathy and Robert's love like the princess and the prince, that they were head over heels for each other. After just their 2nd date, Robert actually asked Kathy to move out to Vermont with him. While they were living there, Robert was actually running a food health store, but his father wasn't too into the idea. He really wanted Robert to continue the legacy of the Durst organization. So just after 2 years, Robert and Kathy actually moved back to New York so that he could continue working in the family business. And when they moved back, yeah, they actually got married in 1973 on Robert's birthday. It was a very private ceremony. So in 1976, Kathy actually became pregnant. She loved children. She was really happy. She actually told Robert. He became like super furious. He became angry. He didn't want a family. Robert actually made her get an abortion, which is, it's disheartening and it's so heartbreaking. When your partner doesn't want the same thing as you, it's really heartbreaking, because she really loved Robert and she just wanted to have a family. This emotionally and mentally destroyed Kathy, as it would to anybody. Kathy became very independent at a point in their relationship, and Robert actually did not like this at all. He was actually the one paying for her funds for school, and she wanted to get her life started. She became independent, and he did not like this at all. He was kind of controlling her in some way. So after receiving her nursing degree in 1978, she got accepted into the Albert Einstein College of Medicine to pursue her pediatrician career. She started going to school. A lot of her classmates described her as being absolutely happy about school. That was something that she was super proud of. She was always sitting in the front row. She was always taking notes. She was super involved into school, and you know, she loved being a medical student. So when Robert noticed that Kathy started becoming independent, this is where there was a huge turn into the relationship. There was an occasion where Jim, Kathy's brother, said that in 1980 it was Christmas and Kathy was super happy to be with her family. Her mom was there. Her brother Jim was there with his fiance, I believe. They were all sitting around the living room. Kathy was sitting at the edge of the couch. Her mom was on the other couch, and then her brother and his wife were on another separate couch. So they were all having a good time, and Kathy was so happy because she was spending time with her family. Jim stated that Robert actually wanted to leave. He said to Kathy, "Hey Kathy, I think it's time for us to leave. You know, let's get going." And she said that she didn't want to leave. She said, "Come on, Robert, like I just want to stay here. I'm having a really good time. Why is there a rush to get home?" And he actually grabbed his coat and he walked out to go turn the car on to warm it up, and he was smoking a marijuana joint outside of her mom's house. Apparently this was not new to anybody. He would randomly do that. He would do things like this. After he was done, he came back into the house and he actually grabbed Kathy by her hair and literally dragged her out of the house, grabbed his coat, and they left. And I feel like at this point in the relationship, it was already getting really bad. Like, he started getting very physical with her at this point. So, you know, on a lot of accounts, people would tell her, like, you need to get out of this relationship because it's gonna get worse. She would call her sister and she would call friends, telling them about their and Robert's recent fights, and that he started getting very physical, and that she actually started becoming afraid of him. There were also a lot of times where she would say that Robert would like mumble little things under his breath, kind of like if he was talking to himself, and he would also growl at people. Things started taking a really bad turn at this point. He started getting very physical with her and she became very afraid of him. She actually was fed up with everything. She contacted a divorce lawyer and she actually filed for divorce for $250,000. He actually refused to give her the money. He canceled her credit cards. He stopped giving her funds for college, and he also took her name off of their jointed account together. He gathered damaging evidence of the Durst organization and of Robert, and she actually sent it to her lawyer. He didn't do anything for her, and the weird thing is that I find really strange is that the lawyer actually sent the information to Seymour. Why would he send that to him? It's almost like they were working together. They were a family of a lot of wealth, so maybe Seymour was paying him a lot of money to keep him quiet. I don't know, but it's like really messed up. It was kind of like her against everybody. Something else that I really wanted to put out there is that Robert and Kathy actually owned a couple of Malamutes. For some odd reason, throughout their relationship, the dogs would go missing, and Kathy would say, "Where's Igor?" and he would just kind of be like, "Oh, he's gone." And every single time he got a new Malamute, he would name the new dogs Igor. I feel like maybe he was hurting these dogs to release some of his delusions and his anger, which is really disturbing. Robert started becoming very possessive over Kathy. At this point, she just wanted out of the relationship because she knew that she was in danger, and she actually told a lot of her friends and her sister, "If something happens to me, please look into it. Robert did it. Don't let him get away with it." Like she knew that something was gonna happen to her. So there was actually an argument that they had, and she was actually treated at the Jacoby Medical Center, where she was getting treated for facial bruising and bruising on her body, but there was never a lawsuit filed against him or a restraining order. Nothing was done about this. A lot of people were afraid of him. They knew that something was off with him. It honestly pisses me off. On January 31st, 1982, Kathy attended a party of one of her friends in Newtown, Connecticut. Her friend actually said that she noticed Kathy was a totally different person. She was dressed in like red sweatpants, and she was really dressed down, and she said that's not normal of Kathy because she's always dressing really nice and she's always very happy. But she noticed that Kathy looked very stressed and very sad. Kathy actually got a call from Robert while she was at the party, and were having an argument or something, and Kathy actually told her friend that she needed to go back to South Salem, New York, so that she could go see Robert. This was actually the last time that anybody would see her. Robert actually reported Kathy missing 4 days later on February 4th, and he went into the police station. He had a newspaper that had a picture of him and his dad and his brother that said "wealthiest men in New York," which I think is very strange. It's kind of saying something. He filed a missing persons report, and they asked him like, when was the last time that you saw her or spoke to her? He actually told the police that the last time that he saw her was when he put her on a train to Manhattan from Westchester County. Westchester County is actually 45 minutes from Manhattan, so not too long. And when she arrived home, she actually called Robert saying that she made it in safe and that she was fine. And he said the reason why he reported her missing a few days later is because they wouldn't always talk because she was busy with school, and you know, they would talk occasionally. She would drop in calls or he would call her, so they didn't think it was off. They thought it was normal. Kathy was actually supposed to meet one of her friends at the Lionsgate pub in New York, but Kathy actually never showed up, and her friend became very worried, so she actually went to the police station and mentioned to them like, "Hey, my friend was supposed to meet me here and she never showed up," and her friend never heard from her, so she was super worried. But the police never did anything about it. They waited until Robert actually filed a missing persons report. The police probably thought she probably didn't show up, something probably came up. He actually claimed that she ran away with a drug dealer. When people heard this, people thought that it was complete bullcrap because she would never do that. Why would she do that when she was in medical school, not too far away from receiving her degree? So a lot of people said that this was not true and that they did not believe it. A lot of people believe that Robert actually had everything to do with her disappearance. So on February 1st, her professor said that he actually received a call from somebody that was trying to impersonate Kathy, saying that she wouldn't be in because she was out sick and she didn't show up for school for a whole week. The professor did not believe this at all because he said that it did not sound like Kathy at all, and that he thinks that somebody was actually calling to impersonate her, which is crazy. You know what I find very, very weird is that the cottage home that they were living in, it was never searched. So if somebody goes missing, if your wife goes missing, they're gonna turn to the husband. They're gonna look to the people who are closest to her just to make sure that they had no involvement in it. But for some odd reason, they did not look in their cottage home, which is what? Like, why would you not look in her home? That's the first place that I would look. I would be looking in their lake because it was lakefront, so they lived right next to a lake. I'd be searching through that lake, and I'd be searching through that home, digging up under the house, because I personally believe that he had everything to do with her disappearance. I think it's crazy how they didn't look into it, and I feel like the police were afraid because if they didn't find anything, he could sue them, and he was a man of a lot of money. Robert actually had detectives search for Kathy everywhere, but from what I saw and from the information that I gathered, their home was never searched, so I find that super weird. A lot of her friends and family actually said that Robert was already throwing her things out just after 5 weeks of her missing. Found all of her belongings in their trash can. Now, first off, I find that super strange because why would you want to get rid of her stuff so quickly? It's almost like he was trying to get rid of her completely from his life. So in 1990, Robert actually filed for divorce claiming spousal abandonment. A few years passed by, and in 1999, the case actually went cold because they could not find anything on Kathy's disappearance. It's almost like she vanished out of thin air, and there was no trace of her anywhere. In the early years of 2000, Kathy's case was actually reopened by Janine Pirro. She's a district attorney at the New York Westchester County, and the case was actually reopened because of certain pieces of evidence. So she believed that they were closer to finding out what actually happened to Kathy. Pirro actually believed that Robert had everything to do with her disappearance. She said, "I know that he did it. You can see it in his face. He has no soul." So Kathy's sister and Miss McKinney, which was Kathy's neighbor, actually went on their own investigation. They actually gathered evidence of phone calls that Robert actually made out to some of his family organizations in Pinesborough, and there was certain words and conversations that they actually believed that Kathy could be buried in Pinesborough in New Jersey. Detectives were not interested at all. They didn't believe that Kathy could have been anywhere in the area, which honestly, this is so frustrating because even if they believe that she could have been there, who is it going to hurt to look there? Why would they not search there if they thought it could have been a possibility? And I mean, just imagine the family. They deserve answers. They deserve any help that they can get from the police. I feel like the police lacked a lot of investigating and that they did not look good enough, to be honest. At this point, Robert was moving from state to state, city to city, like he was just always on the run. In 1995, he actually moved to the Lost Coast, which is in California, and he was pretty much just on his own. He hated having contact with anybody because anytime they would have small talk, they would always ask, like, what do you do for a living? And he would say nothing because he was living off of his family estate. There was a shop, a woman's shoe shop, and she said that sometimes Robert would stop in there to find women's clothing. It's not like he was trying to cross-dress, but it's almost as if he was trying to become somebody else because of the way that he was acting, and he disguised himself a lot of the times. And there was actually somebody else that went missing. Her name was Karen Mitchell. She actually shopped at the same shoe store that Robert would go into, and a lot of people believe that Robert had a lot to do with this young teenager's disappearance because she was very different. She liked talking to different people. You know, she was a very free-spirited person, and a lot of people actually said that there was a possibility that her and Robert could have actually been friends. And there was a witness that actually said that they saw Karen get into the car of an older man's car, and after that she just disappeared. The witness actually made a sketch of the person that he saw Karen with. The sketch was literally identical to Robert. If you see the sketch, you'll notice that his physical features are literally the exact same. It's pointing right to him, but there wasn't enough evidence to put him away. So he was never convicted of her disappearance either. They have not even found her yet. Her case was actually closed like 4 years later, which is really sad because her mother has no idea what could have happened to her, and she always said that Karen was just a loving person. She never judged anybody. She was always very chatty with, you know, everybody. She was a free spirit, very sweet girl. He was never convicted. So one of Kathy's friends, Eleanor, she actually believed that Susan Berman, a close friend of Robert's, and she was actually a Hollywood novelist or writer, and she was actually a huge part of Robert's life at this time, and she actually acted as Robert's spokesperson, saying that he had no comments at this time, that he was very distraught about his wife's disappearance. So she was acting as his spokesperson, and she actually relied on Robert a lot for money because her career wasn't going as well as she wanted it to. So she would always reach out to Robert for money, and it wasn't just like small amounts of money, it was like thousands of dollars. Kathy's friend Eleanor actually believed that Susan could have known what happened to Kathy, like she knew something about the disappearance of Kathleen. Eleanor wanted Susan to be interviewed because she believed that she could be the key to finding out what happened to Kathy. So just weeks before Susan's interview, she was actually murdered in her home, execution style. There was actually a check left at Susan's home of $50,000 from Robert, and Robert actually went to visit her the day before to give her the check. And she said, you know what, you can mail it to me, but he decided to come in person and give her the check. I think he became very nervous when he found out that the case reopened and he didn't want her to talk, and he knew that she was gonna have an interview. She shows up dead the next day. I find that a huge coincidence. Before Susan's death, her therapist actually said that she grew really worried of Robert and that she was actually fearful of him because she knew too much. And there was actually a tip that came in. It was a letter. It's really famous. It's known as the cadaver note, and the handwriting looked just like Robert. And when the case reopened, Robert actually got married to a real estate entrepreneur. Her name is Deborah Lee Sheraton, and a lot of people believe the reason why he got married is so that she couldn't testify against him. They couldn't testify against each other because they're married at this point, and that he just kind of did this to save his ass, which it makes so much sense. Like, why would he be so quick to get married? He moved to Galveston, Texas, and he actually disguised himself as a muted woman known by the name of Dorothy Siner. He stole that identity from one of his old high school classmates. So he was using a whole bunch of different identities so that he could disguise himself because he was in the public eye. Like, a lot of people hated him and he was getting a lot of hate. And in 2001, his neighbor Morris Black was actually murdered. He was, oh my gosh, he was found decapitated. Robert actually turned himself in. He said that he didn't do it sooner is because he was afraid of what people would think and that they would say, oh, you killed him. It's like literally everywhere this guy went, people would go missing or they would end up dead. He was actually questioned asking, why did you murder Morris Black? And he said that he actually acted in self-defense, that they had an argument over a gun, and that he actually shot Morris and he was afraid of going to jail, so he decapitated his body, which I think is very strange. Dismembered his body and he threw some of his body into the Galveston Bay. The autopsy on Morris Black's body actually showed that there was a lot of bruising in his upper torso, kind of like if he was beaten. So they said it made no sense. This could have been over an argument, that it was something way further than just an argument. Oh my gosh, this is like so crazy because literally everywhere he goes, people end up dead. In 2003, he did a little bit of jail time for the Morris Black case, but he was never found guilty for his murder because he acted in self-defense. Like, this guy was getting away with murder. Everywhere he went, he was dodging bullets. So a movie actually came out called All Good Things. It stars Ryan Gosling and Kristen Bell, and it's pretty much the story of Kathy and Robert. I recommend you guys go watch it because it actually makes a lot of sense, like a lot of the theories that were found in there. It's a really good movie, and apparently Robert was actually a huge fan of this movie, and he actually contacted the Jinx producers and he wanted an interview telling them his side of the story. So as they were interviewing him, there were a few seasons. It's an HBO series called The Jinx, and he said that he wanted to get his side of the story out because he felt like a lot of people were making him out to look like a monster. There were a few seasons, and the first season came out. His attorney actually said that the way that they edited the video was to make Robert look like a monster. So while he was on the Jinx, they actually showed the cadaver note next to the letter that he emailed to Suzanne, and they said, which one do you think is yours and which one is the cadaver note? And he couldn't even make a distinction between which one was his and which one was the cadaver note. Robert actually got his things and he moved again, and he ended up in New Orleans. And there was actually a recording. His mic was still left on his clothing, and he went to the bathroom, and there was a recording that was shown where he said, "What the hell did I do? I killed them all, of course." So that was like a huge confession. He didn't know that the mic was recording, so I'm like, thank God that they left the mic on him, because imagine if he didn't say that, he would have gotten away with this. His attorney was actually really upset that he wanted to be on the Jinx. He pretty much put himself in jail, and he got his stuff and left. And just 2 years before the series actually came out, they handed the evidence over to the police, and the police were, you know, doing their investigation. They headed to the New Orleans hotel, and the police were asking, is there anybody by the name of Dorothy here or Morris Black? Because he was using a whole bunch of different aliases, and as they were asking, they actually saw him trying to head up to his hotel room from the elevator. So they actually went up to his room, and they found guns, they found money, like stacks of money. They found a lot of things that could have led to his killing. Now, he was arrested on March 14th, 2015, so just a day before the last episode was actually supposed to air. He was actually charged for gun possession, and he's actually being held in prison right now. He's actually awaiting trial this year for April of this year for the connection and murder of Susan Berman. So I am hoping and I'm crossing my fingers that they get this guy, and if he is found guilty in the killing of Susan Berman, he's actually going to be sentenced to the death penalty. I believe that he did everything. I don't know what happened to Kathy, and it breaks my heart because her family will never know what happened to her. It's so sad because her mom actually passed away years later after her disappearance, so her mom never even got closure. Janine Pirro is fighting to find out what actually happened to Kathy, and she said that she feels like she's closer to actually finding out what happened to her, even though it's years later. It's not fair how, yes, he gets to sit in jail, but there's no justice as to what really happened to her. And I hope that her family and all of the families that were involved find closure, and that, you know, they're able to heal. So with that being said, I believe that Robert had everything to do with the killings and the disappearance of Kathy. I hope there's some justice that is served. So I'll definitely be following this case. If you guys want an updated video, go ahead and let me know. Hopefully this video wasn't like too scrambled, or I didn't do such a horrible job. If you guys enjoyed this video, go ahead and give it a thumbs up so I can do more. I'm sure I will get better as time goes on. This was my first time, so hopefully it wasn't too bad. And if I missed any information, I will definitely leave it here on the screen or in the description. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I really hope you guys enjoyed, and I will see you in my next video. Bye.